Peter said, "We must obey God rather than men." The apostles were filled with the Holy Spirit. They went out to all the ends of the earth, and there they met suffering and death, rather than giving up their faith. And as we hear in the gospel, Jesus says, "The one who is of the earth is earthly. The one who comes from above is from heaven." So the apostles had heavenly insight. They were inspired by God. And nothing could shake their faith once they received the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. And so down through the ages, many gave their lives witnessing to their faith in Jesus. Today we celebrate Saint Stanislaus, the bishop in Krakow, Poland, 1,000 years ago. In Krakow, on a hill, is the beautiful cathedral, and next to it was the palace of the king. Bishop Stanislaus criticized the king for his immoral behavior and for his cruelty. And at a certain point, Bishop Stanislaus excommunicated the king. So the king ordered the bishop's death. Soldiers were sent to execute him, but they refused. So the king himself entered the cathedral when Bishop Stanislaus was celebrating Mass, and with his own sword put him to death at the altar. That is certainly a shock. The conflict between the bishop and the king would result. But we can look at examples like Bishop John Fisher of England, St. Thomas More, how they had conflict with the King of England, and how they would not give up their faith and their beliefs, rather accepting death. So the conflict continues down through the ages. 500 years ago, there was another Stanislaus. He's known as Stanislaus Kostka. And at age 14, he was sent to Vienna from Poland to study, and his family was very rich. They were very influential in the government. And the father, he envisioned both of his sons to be high up in the government in Poland. But the younger brother, Stanislaus Kostka, was very devout, and he would be in church. He would be at Mass, where his older brother would not be. His older brother ridiculed him and beat him. At a certain point, the younger Stanislaus became very ill, and he asked for the priest to come and give him Holy Communion. But his older brother refused to let the priest in the door. So the conflict continued. And coming out of that sickness, Stanislaus Kostka felt a desire to become a member of the Jesuit order. So he went to the head of the order in Vienna and asked to be admitted. He was 17 years old. But the superior of the order refused because he knew that would cause difficulty with his father and the royal families. So he suggested that he go to Germany and speak to the head of the order there. So what he did is he left a note that he would not be at dinner. He exchanged clothes with a poor man in the street. He gave away his finery and put on the clothing of a common person, and he began to walk 450 miles to Germany. And in those days, there were no highways, there were no straight paths, there were no directions. But he found his way all the way to Augsburg, and he went to the head of the order there and asked to be admitted into the Jesuit order. And he was. And then he was escorted to Rome to begin studies as a novice. So they traveled to Rome. They arrived. Stanislaus Kostka began his studies. But just a few weeks before his 18th birthday, he became very ill. And he passed away. So here we have another example of someone who was faithful to his vocation, faithful to Jesus, even in the opposition of family, and he died even before he could do anything. He didn't preach, he didn't write a book, he didn't give a lecture, but Stanislaus Kostka was devout. He had great faith. He was close to the Lord in the Eucharist. So that's a lesson in itself, that in our spiritual life we want to be close to Jesus, especially in the Eucharist, and maybe God has a plan that we do great things, and maybe God has a plan that we do nothing. But the base reality is to be with the Lord and to obey God rather than men.